Good morning. Thank you all for being here. First of all, I would like to introduce those around me, my executive team. On my left is Tim Taylor. He's my chief of staff. Ryan McBride, he's the General Crimes Division chief. On my right, Chad Grunander, my chief deputy. Christine Johnson. Scott, I got it wrong. There's a judge. Okay, Christine Scott, and she is my major crimes chief, and Steve Adams, who's my chief of investigations. I will note that Chad and Tim, they just successfully completed the prosecution of Matt Hoover for the shooting death of Officer Shinners. Christine and Ryan last year, I guess maybe a little longer than last year, in the last year and a half successfully prosecuted the Jared Baum case. We have a tremendous team at the county attorney's office, excellent lawyers, and it's a privilege to serve with them. I am going to be making a statement, a prepared statement. I will not be taking any questions at this time. So first, I would like to express my sincere condolences to Sergeant Bill Hoosier's wife, Kinda, and their two daughters, Shaylee and Courtney. This is an unspeakable loss for them. We mourn with you and pray that you can find some peace and some solace in this most trying of times. On Saturday, after a short stay at the University of Utah Hospital, Michael Aaron Jane was booked into the Utah County Jail on suspicion of murder. Today, after having reviewed the evidence gathered so far by law enforcement, the Utah County Attorney's Office has filed formal charges against Mr. Jane. The charging document, called a criminal information, alleges the commission of 9 felony offenses on May 5th, 2024. Specifically, we have charged Mr. Jane with 1 count of aggravated murder, a capital felony, for intentionally or knowingly causing the death of Sergeant Bill Hoosier, a police officer for the Santaquin Police Department. 2 counts of attempted aggravated murder, each a first-degree felony, for attempting to cause the death of Trooper Dustin Griffiths of the Utah Highway Patrol and attempting to cause the death of a woman who had been a passenger in Mr. Jane's semi-truck. 1 count of aggravated kidnapping, a first-degree felony, for using or threatening to use a weapon in the unlawful detention of the female passenger in Mr. Jane's semi-truck. 1 count of burglary, a second-degree felony, for the unlawful entry into a dwelling with the intent to commit theft while fleeing police. 3 counts of automobile theft, each a second-degree felony, for the unauthorized taking of 3 automobiles while fleeing police. And 1 count of failing to obey the lawful command of a police officer to stop, a third-degree felony, for fleeing despite law enforcement officers' visual and audible signals to stop. The arrest and filing of the information are merely the first steps in the criminal justice process. Tomorrow at 3 p.m., Mr. Jane will appear before a judge in the 4th District Court to be informed of these charges. He will then be entitled to the assistance of counsel for his defense and to a preliminary hearing where the state will be required to show probable cause that the defendant committed the charged crimes. The purpose of a preliminary hearing is not to determine guilt, but simply to determine whether the prosecution has enough evidence to proceed to trial. It is important to note that at this stage, the charges and the information are only allegations, including the allegations of his intent and conduct. Under our Constitution, Mr. Jane is presumed innocent until and unless proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. He is entitled to the assistance of counsel, a speedy and public trial before a jury of his peers, and to all the other rights afforded under the Constitution. At trial, it will be our burden to prove Mr. Jane's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, and ultimately, it will be for a jury to decide whether we have met that burden. I am assembling a team of my best attorneys to achieve that end. By way of information, I would like to explain the most serious charge. Aggravated murder is a capital offense. Under Utah law, a person convicted of aggravated murder may face one of three possible sentences: the death penalty, life in prison without the possibility of parole, or 25 years to life in prison with the possibility of parole. If after the preliminary hearing, a judge decides that Mr. Jane should stand trial, he will be required to enter a plea to each of the charges at what is called an arraignment hearing. If Mr. Jane pleads not guilty at the arraignment, then by statute, we will have 60 days to file a notice of intent to seek the death penalty. I know that this case has generated a tremendous interest from the public, and we have already received requests from the press for recordings and reports associated with the investigation. We intend to deny those requests. You may ask why. First, the investigation is ongoing. Second, and it bears reiterating, that under our Constitution, only a jury can determine the defendant's guilt or innocence, and the jury must do so based only on evidence that is admissible as determined by a judge, not on information a juror might learn from the press. Also, I would remind you that all hearings, including the trial, are public. It is both my goal and my sworn duty to see to it that justice is done in accordance with the Constitution. I will notify the public when it comes time to file a notice of intent to seek the death penalty. I will also make a statement after the trial concludes. Otherwise, I do not intend to make statements during this ongoing investigation and criminal justice process. I will not publicly opine on the evidence or on decisions issued by the court. I will not do anything that might jeopardize the integrity of this prosecution. This process will take months, so I ask for your patience as this case proceeds. Thank you.
All right. You have the
Yeah,
informations?
you have been handed the informations, which includes our probable cause affidavit, and that explains in more detail what is happening.
Say that to the microphone, please.
Okay. You have been provided